Good evening, everybody. It's 9:30 on the East Coast, 6:30 on the West Coast on a Monday. That must mean it's time for your weekly Calamity James live stream. James, how are you doing on this late winter evening where the sun is setting a little bit later and it's not maybe quite as cold as you're used to?
Wow, what an intro slash greeting. It's hard to. All I'm gonna do is give you a one word answer saying, "Yep, everything's good," but that's not a one word. It's just a
No, that was more than
really
one word,
simple,
so we've already gone off the
simple
rails
sentence.
completely. Yeah, just already gone off the rails.
I am doing well. How are you on your side of it?
I'm doing a-okay. Yeah, things are pretty quiet right now. Doing a lot of improv. Got back into did a little bit of an online improv show. I haven't done Zoom prov in quite a while, so it was
Mm,
interesting to get back into that sort of milieu, so to speak. It was fun. I knew everybody on the show that they did, and so it was it's interesting. So I did that show, and I don't really like online improv that much. I prefer to be on
mm,
stage, but
mm.
what I prefer more is playing with people I know.
Yeah,
So I played with them, and I knew all of them, and so it was really easy to kind of hop into it and just kind of play because I knew all their styles, I knew kind of where they were going to go and that kind of stuff. Um, and then I went to a jam at my the theater, right? And it was a lot of students and a lot of people I didn't know, and it's not nearly as much fun. I'm just going to be honest. Like I'm glad that these students are coming to the jams. I'm glad that they're kind of getting their reps in and playing a little
hmm
bit, but there are they're new. They're not bad. They're new, right? This isn't
yeah,
like, oh, you're bad at improv. It's oh, you haven't been doing this for years and years and years, and
yeah,
you don't understand that sometimes you need to let a scene breathe. Sometimes you don't always need to be chasing a joke. Sometimes you can,
yeah,
it's okay to be quiet for a couple of minutes, right?
yeah.
And so you try to create something, you try to build something, and before you can even get and I think part of it too is just the way that I learned improv.
hmm
The way I learned improv is you are coming from an infinite probability space,
hmm
and you're
Yeah.
trying to bring it down into a single story. And the way you do that, and I think we've talked about this before, is this concept of CROW, which is an acronym for character, relationship, objective, and where, right? And the
hmm
basic philosophy is if you can establish who your characters are, establish what their relationships are to each other, what their relationships are to themselves, what their relationships are to their environment, what the objective is in the scene, and where is the scene taking place, you can't have a bad scene. It's basically guaranteed to be a good scene if you
hmm
can genuinely establish all four of those elements, right?
mm.
I need to, my friend Jen is like, you need to go talk to like a place and do a workshop, like do a class, the Crow method
hmm
class, right? And I'm
hmm
not taking credit. I didn't invent this. I learned this at Unexpected Productions in Seattle.
Yeah.
But,
hmm
that's how they taught it in Seattle, and obviously it's taught differently down here.
This is,
But yeah, I should like see if someone wants to, let me do the space to um, do an improv workshop, just the Crow method. But so as a result, like I come into a scene with that mindset. Like I have just a basic
hmm
offer in mind. I'm in a space of infinite possibilities at that point. And
Yeah.
as I say things and more people come into the screen, we narrow it down until we figure out what the scene is. But
hmm
new students don't, A, they've not been taught that way, and B, they don't know enough about improv in general, so that they rush in before they know who their characters are, before they know what the other characters are, and they just start giving more and more offers rather than thinking about the offers that are already on the table, right?
hmm
This is the classic mistake that I see young improvisers doing. And again, this isn't an insult. The fact that they're getting on stage at all is like huge, right?
Yeah, it's a big win right there. Yeah.
So this is purely an experience thing. But what I see them doing, and I know that they're not aware that they're doing it because they're just too new, is an offer's been made on the stage. People are building on that offer, and then they want to be a part of the scene, and they come on, and rather than integrating into the scene as it exists, they create another offer that is maybe related to the characters, but now it dilutes the objective and the relationships of everybody else. Right?
Yeah.
And so as a result, now rather than having a scene that's concise and you're working towards a storyline, now you've got this other offer, which is essentially a new storyline that's all taking place in the same scene.
Yeah,
right?
it's a whole other set of variables. And now you're trying to, as an audience member, you're trying to keep track of multi-threads of story.
Right. So, like, for instance, I got on stage at the jam, and I just got on a chair, and I was, like, reaching up. Let's pause. What are we working on tonight visually?
Sure.
Because I just immediately just go into some sort of TED Talk about improv, and I forget that, maybe we should animate something tonight.
Sure. I'll jump in on my stuff, but yeah, let's keep this going, what you're talking about, because it's pretty fascinating. And no, I don't remember us talking about the crow method.
Yeah, that's how I was taught in Seattle, and I don't know if the artistic director at the time, Unexpected Productions, Randy Dixon, if he created it or if he got it from somewhere else. It's possible that he got it from somewhere else because he came up with Del Close, right? So he worked with Del Close, who is amongst a few other people like Viola Davis and Paul Sims. I don't remember. I'm screwing up his name. I'm very angry at myself right now. But anyway. Mm-hmm. So they created modern American improv, and Del Close was a contemporary, played with Del Close. Randy Dixon played with Del Close. And so coming up through Seattle Improv at Unexpected Productions, the way all the teachers taught was based on Randy's philosophy of Crow, right? Mm-hmm. And so I just call it the Crow method. I don't even know if Randy calls it the Crow method.
Gotcha.
But I mean, it defines how I do improv. Oh, you're working on the bear still. Awesome. It's really coming along.
Yeah. Just to get started here, like I'm working on the bear for Mitchell's Bar.
Mm-hmm.
I ran into some technical issues last week, not last week, a couple weeks back, but now we're back at it. But I'm pretty much far enough along where I'm going to be doing some polished stuff. But it's perfect because we're so focusing on one story here for the bear.
Yeah.
And I'm just working on that while you're talking about the Crow method and everything like that. It's perfect. So anyways, as I keep going here, I'll eventually bring it over into Procreate to paint. But let's see how far I get tonight with just sculpting it and finishing it up here a little bit. So you can see some seams here. I'm going to finish up and kind of polish it off and kind of make it look a little less seamy and more organic. So up in the shoulder here, like I need to kind of polish that stuff up. But anyways, let's go back to what you were talking about as I work on this.
Well, quick question. I will get back to improv, but I remember when we were working on this, when you were working on this last, the issue is there was a weird scaling bug where things weren't scaling uniformly, like the mirror wasn't working properly.
The mirror wasn't working, so let's see here if I can get that to work here. So, for example, if I go drag,
so it's still doing that. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's still kind of acting weird like that. Why is it that it did that?
Well, I don't mean to derail you. I mean, if you've got into a workable state, like I don't.
It's okay. Now I'm caught up in that again. I want to make sure.
I'm sorry.
I didn't know how to do that. Well.
Anyway, if you've got it in a state that's working, I don't want to like throw a wrench in the works.
Oh man, I think we're back in the wrench with the works thing.
Got into the weeds. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Gosh, what happened with that? I don't know how that happened.
Well, while you root around in menus.
Yes. While you're doing that, you can talk about improv, but I'm going to experiment again just to see if I can get this to work right.
Well, So I was at this jam, and I got on a chair, and I was just reaching above me, trying to get like a box, right? Just a very, very basic offer, right? Just a physical gesture.
Uh-huh.
And as one of my other players came out, and she was an old lady talking to her old husband, and we were in the attic of our house. Great.
Mm-hmm.
We have our characters. We've got our
Mm-hmm.
relationships. We know where we are. Boom. All we need to figure out is why. Why am I reaching for this box? Like, we were so close already. And
Mm-hmm.
she starts with that offer. She's like, oh, be careful. Don't pull it down. We don't want our grandchildren to see it. Awesome. Let's experiment with this, right? We
Uh-huh.
can go somewhere. Because I don't trust our grandchildren. She was making some sort of offer to imply that the grandkids are maybe less than savory individuals, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the other players comes into the scene from the other part of the stage. So we've completely broken our location now, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
By my one partner coming in from stage right, we establish that that's where the entrance of the attic is. The other player comes in stage left, and now all of a sudden it's ruined the verisimilitude of the attic. Not a huge deal, whatever, move on. But not only is he playing one of the grandchildren, he's playing one of the grandchildren like he's a troll. Right?
What?
So yeah, so now he's completely thrown everything out the window. So instead of playing sort of like a grounded, just bad, good son kind of character,
Mm-hmm.
now he's actually turned into some sort of cartoonish villain character. And so everything that we were so close to hitting Crow. We were so close to finding everything and then figuring out what the objective was and making a great
And then
scene.
all of a sudden,
And then all of a
yeah.
sudden the scene becomes about him, because now he's the most interesting thing on the stage. Why is the grandson a troll? And so rather than focus, I just said, well, I'm going to keep the box up here. I literally said that. Like, well, never mind. I'm just going to put the box back up here because now the focus of the scene is this new player that's come in, right?
Yeah.
Not only
yeah.
has he broken the verisimilitude of the reality, but he's also ignored all of the offers that were already in play. Now, he
Yeah.
hasn't gone like, never mind, we're on a subway, because he came in and he respected the fact that, we were his grandparents,
Mm-hmm.
but that was it. Everything else was basically thrown out the window, right? He didn't acknowledge the chest. He didn't acknowledge that I was, he didn't acknowledge the attic. He didn't really understand who his character was by making him a troll, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we've got enough players on stage at this point. We've got 3 people, and we've got to figure this out. And so I go, like, Brandon... Oops, oh, Penny, I'm sorry. Brandon... Or, no, I said, Kyle, why don't you come over here and sit down? And then my other scene partner, she goes, yeah, Brandon, sit down. And, like, boom. Now she's undermined the character again. None of this is intentional, right? It's purely inexperience. So now we have enough people on stage. And then another person comes onto the stage. And now we have a second grandchild to deal with. And this one is normal for some reason, right?
Wait, non-troll?
Non-troll, just a normal grandchild. So it's completely thrown. Our relationships are completely screwed up. The characters are completely screwed up. The attic is still an attic, but it's not clear what the structure of it is because people are coming in from all sides of the stage. We have no objective anymore, right? And not surprisingly, the scene kind of just meanders along without any real objective because no one really knows what's going on anymore, right? And again, they're not bad improvisers; they're just students,
Yeah. But I mean, okay, let's go back to when you first started. I mean, was this?
I did those same kind of mistakes all the time,
right?
all the time. Yeah, this is not. Yeah, again, it's not an insult to them at all.
Yeah. It's just the challenge because you've been here, you've been down this road, but how do you convey?
Right.
Do you all just kind of meet afterwards and kind of recap? And so this is what worked.
No,
this didn't work. I mean, how do they learn from this? Is a question.
What I wish they did is I wish they did student jams, where it was literally like, okay, we're gonna do this jam, but it's gonna actually be like we're gonna sit and do notes afterwards, or we're actually gonna side coach. When I was still teaching improv workshops, I would actually side coach, or I would let a scene play out and take notes while the scene was playing out, and then go over and like, okay, you made this choice. Here's, do a little script writing, which you're not supposed to do in improv, but
Yeah.
on reflection, I don't think there's, especially if you're learning, I don't think there's any harm in that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, in this case, there wasn't really much to do about it, right?
Yeah.
I spent the rest of the time trying to like anchor the scene and
Yeah.
and reestablish an objective, but the problem is it just never took. So like when the troll grandson came out, I was like, okay, come and sit down. We need to explain something to us. You're not actually our grandson, right? So it's like, okay, now we're trying to explain why the grandson is a troll, and that maybe can get us to an objective, right? I don't really quite know what the objective is yet, but we can get there from that. But then the other kid came in, and now we've got another grandson. And before we can even figure that out, then someone else like wipes the stage, and now we've in a completely other storyline that is related to the first storyline, but fundamentally independent of it. And it just, at that point, it just got completely off the rails, and I kind of just sort of, I went into a support role, right? I stopped.
Yeah.
I stopped trying to create. Now just like, okay, you guys are going to do what you're going to do. Like literally at one point in the scene, two of the characters invite me and my wife and our two grandchildren over for dinner. And by this point, there's 6 people in the scene. And I just sat down and ate food for the rest of the scene. I had nothing to contribute. There's nothing to do, right? And so I just sat and I basically just contributed to the overall, sort of painting of the scene, right? Mm-hmm. Because I wasn't going to accomplish anything by adding more words to it or adding more variables. The best thing I could do at that point was just effectively be scene decoration. So for the rest of the scene, I ate my dinner, right? And that was it.
Oh, man. That's rough.
But it's, it is what it is. I do wish I had an opportunity to sit and talk with him a little bit, but it's just, that's the nature of the beast sometimes. That's, jams are kind of, you get all types, right? Sometimes you just get amazing performers and they get lucky enough to be paired up with each other, and you make magic even when you don't know each other. And sometimes you get a lot of very green performers, and you practice different skills, right? Like it was an opportunity for me to try to drive an objective. It was an opportunity for me to try to meet Crow, establish Crow. But when that didn't, I was like, okay, well, how else can I contribute to this scene? And that was the way to go, right? So, anyway.
So, are you actually going to think of, if you're going to teach this Crow method,
mm-hmm.
Have you given it more thought to it? I mean,
I've already put together, I put together, a lesson plan for someone I used to know, sometime last year, which I really liked, actually. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I would probably use that. I mean, basically, I would just, I would do a multi-week, 6 to 8 week course, and I would focus on one element of Crow each week for the first mm-hmm. 4 weeks, and then mm-hmm. spend the rest of the class integrating them and just doing exercises towards integrating them, and then maybe you'd want to do a show, right? A showcase. Mm-hmm. And the week before the showcase, I would, likely just spend rehearsing, just running scenes and side coaching, right? Side coaching is an interesting thing. Some people are huge in it. Some people hate it.
Wait, what's side coaching is what? You just observe from the side?
No, side coaching is literally like, okay, pause. I hold your scene, pause. Okay. And then you go, okay, here's what my thoughts are. Here's where I think you're, like for instance, in that scene I was describing in the attic, uh-huh. If I were the teacher of that workshop, the second the kid came in as the troll, I would have pause, right?
Oh, got it.
And then tell me what you're thinking. Why did you make this choice, right? and then I would go, think about what the two people who are already in the scene have established. Okay? Do you need to come onto the scene, right? Think about where you were coming onto the scene. Does it make sense that this attic has two entrances, right? I would, just put those thoughts in their head. And I wouldn't tell them, do it over again. I would go, okay, now continue.
Yeah.
But the idea, the idea is to get them thinking about Crow, right? Always having that in their mind. And so that's what I would do. I would side coach, right? The last 1 or 2 weeks after we've gone through the whole method, after we've done exercises and games that emphasize that kind of structure, then the last 1 or 2 weeks we would just focus on doing scenes with that method, and I would just side coach, right?
Mm-hmm.
And give them an opportunity to just stretch their legs and practice what we had spent the previous weeks working on. That would be the workshop. Remember, real simple stuff, right? I mean, the thing that I love about that method is it's so simple, but it really is effective. Like when I am playing with people that I'm familiar with or really, really good improvisers, whether you are expressly using the Crow method or not, you are always driving to that kind of thing, because those are 4 fundamental elements of any scene in any story. Who are the characters? Sure. What are the relationships? What are their objectives? And where are they, right? And so when you do it, when you can accomplish that, I've never had a bad scene when you can establish those 4 things. Never.
Have you ever learned or studied any other philosophies for improv besides this Crow method you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I've taken a few classes here and there.
Uh-huh.
And I have found that, generally speaking, they all follow the same general path, which is why I think I like this specific. This gives you very clear parameters to work with. Mm-hmm. Most improv class structures tend to follow the same basic process of here is what improv is. Believe it or not, it's more than whose line is it anyway, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Then class 2 is, okay, now that you know basically what improv is, and we've done some very simple games, now we're going to do more complex games and explain to you why the games matter, right? Okay, great. Those are the first 2 classes. Mm-hmm. Then class 3 is okay, now we're going to start doing more complex scene work. Rather than playing games, we're going to do actual scenes, and we're going to explain how you integrate the games that you've been learning into the scenes that you're playing. Mm-hmm. And then the 4th class is always long form, right? Okay, so now you know scenes, now you know how games integrate into the scenes. Now we're going to teach you montage. Now we're going to teach you the Herald. Now we're going to teach you an Armando or a Melanie or a Laurent or something like that. Mm-hmm. Follow the lever. I mean, there's a million different types of long forms. And those are all good, and you will sort of implicitly learn Crow as a result of that, just by going through these exercises. But I think that there's value in explicitly defining those parameters, explicitly defining those goals that you can shoot for, right?
Well, it does. I mean, improv. The beauty of improv is the spontaneity part, but it can also you're walking a fine line of chaos too, because just like what you described, and I haven't done it since my childhood, in high school, but I remember improv just being such a fun, creative activity to, explore characters, and you're wanting to jump in and throw this monkey wrench in and throw this monkey wrench in. But it devolves into chaos if you keep doing that. If you keep playing the agent of chaos and everybody else wants to be an agent of chaos, then it becomes too complicated. It's what's kind of funny is that it reminds me a little bit of jazz too. Like jazz, you learn your sets and you play with it, and then you kind of riff on the rules. You break the rules by learning the rules first. Very similar. In my opinion, I don't know.
I think that's a very great I mean, not yeah, I guess analogy.
Yeah,
Improv is very much the jazz of performing arts. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And when it's
yeah.
great, it's unbelievable. And when it's bad, it's is this really music, right?
Yes, exactly. And then yeah, then you want to just get up and leave. Same with
Right.
improv. You just want to get up and leave.
Yep.
If you're an
Absolutely.
audience member, it's like, why am I here?
But
They
then
don't
there
know what
are
they're
those
doing, and
shows.
they don't know what they're doing.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly. But then you get these transcendent shows sometimes
Yep.
where you will
They
be
bring you in.
yeah, you speak to the audience afterwards, and I have been to shows where the audience that I've had audience members actually call me a liar and refuse
What?
to believe that what they had just seen was completely made up.
Oh, that's a sign of
I
really
mean,
good improv
that
then.
that is the best
That's
compliment you can
awesome.
get is
That,
when
yep,
an audience
exactly.
member calls you a liar, right?
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And that happened once, and we've talked about this at length. It was that time that we did improvised Ray Bradbury.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I probably even said it on this podcast, but I was the lead tech for that show, and the premise of the show is that we were just improvising from three suggestions, an entire Ray Bradbury short story on stage, right?
Hmm.
Sort of like something you would find in the Illustrated Man, right? Um, and so the crux of the story was a society of women living on Mars and a spaceship filled with nothing but men. And these women hadn't interacted with men in generations. And then a spaceship, the crew of which was only men, crashes on Mars, and then it's sort of what is that interaction between the men and the women, who they haven't seen each other in generations, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And one of the subplots of the show was the women would gather in a viewing gallery every sunset to watch the sun set over the horizon of Mars. And they established this in almost the first scene of the show, and then they come back to it after the men have arrived in the colony and started integrating. And the men are causing a ruckus and sort of ruining the ceremony of watching the sun set. And I pick
Hmm.
up on this, right? And so the booth had a hand-mounted spot. We had a side wall. So I take the hand-mounted spot, I iris it in a little bit, throw just a regular circle of light on the side wall, and I start lowering it, right? Just very slowly while the scene is progressing. And as I'm lowering the spot down to emulate a sunset, I also start changing the stage wash from red to blue, right?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because anytime they were sort of in the Mars milieu, when they weren't like inside the colony, I would throw a red wash on the stage just to kind of, give the sense of like they're on Mars. And then as the sun is setting, it's becoming night, and so I change from a red wash to a blue wash to sort of simulate that, right? And I wasn't even sure that the people on stage, the performers on stage, were going to pick up on it, but my friend Jacqueline did. And when the wash changed completely to blue, and I turned the spot off, so the sun had set, she went, "We missed it. We missed the sunset." And it was a complete turning point in the story, because this was the point at which the men had truly destroyed the status quo of this colony of women, and it changed the rest of the course of the play. And it was awesome. It was one of my favorite moments I've ever had doing tech prof, right? And we had a musical improviser scoring the whole thing in real time, and he was really good at just kind of coming up with themes on the fly. And so
Hmm.
he had come up with a theme for the observatory area, right? And so he was playing that theme during that scene, and he would come back to it every time they were in that space. And so after the show, Jason and he was the musician, we're just talking about like, I can't believe that worked. That was unbelievable. Blah blah blah. That was amazing. I mean, like everything. We were as impressed with it as the audience was, right? Because I mean,
Uh-huh.
obviously, we didn't know that was going to happen.
Hmm.
Um, and as we were talking about it, one of the audience members, she came back into the theater and was like, "I'm really sorry, I forgot my purse." I'm like, yeah, no worries. And so she comes down the stairs to where her seat is. She grabs her purse, and she hears us talking about this, and she goes, "Wait a second, what do you mean that you didn't know that was going to happen? We were like, well, this show is improvised. Like, we don't have a script. We just, like, make it up in real time. She goes, no, that's not possible. We're like, no,
Wow.
like, this is just a thing that happened. Like, this is real. She was like, I don't believe you. I'm like, oh, okay. That's a great compliment. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big win. Yeah, but I'm assuming that, I mean, that it's, I mean, to get that every time out though is
Oh,
pretty tough because you have to be
no,
with the
yeah.
troupe, right? You pretty much have to be with the same
Yeah.
group of folks and stuff like
Oh, yeah.
that.
I mean, for every
Um,
one moment like that, there's 10 moments that, are 50% or less of that, right? That
yeah,
was a truly transcendent moment. That was the point at which improv becomes art, when everybody, the musical improviser, the onstage performers, the tech person, they just kind of get into this unspoken psychic sync, almost a collective unconscious, and you can just read each other's minds implicitly in a really
yeah,
weird way, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly.
And that doesn't happen all the time, right? But it did in that moment, and it was, yeah. I mean, till the day that I die, I will be chasing. I'll be chasing that moment again.
Yeah, trying to chase that eye.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, while we're talking about improv, I improved here, making the bear, and I got it to work. And honestly, I just got into a zone, just kind of listening to you and just trying to work through it. I don't know how I solved it, honestly, but as you can see, like I was able to
Oh
do,
yeah, look at that.
yeah. So then once I figured that out, then I was good. But I think it has something to do with the symmetry button here. That I'm not sure if you can see it, but I'm
Yeah, I
turning it on
see
the
that
left
turning it on
side.
and off. Yeah.
But the thing is confusing, and this is more of a UI thing we can get into video game wise later.
Mm-hmm.
But like I have symmetry here too, and it's already on, but yet it's not.
Yeah.
It's just kind of throws me off as a user, but it's okay. Once I got it to work, it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but here's the magic part now: is I'm going to try this, and I might crash, and this might end our
Well, save,
our.
save, save, save,
Yes,
save.
yes, yeah, yes, yes. Of course, I did save,
Okay.
but let me save one more time. Okay, so let's see
Now
here.
this is
But yes,
Blender, correct?
thank you.
Or no, this
This
is
is Nomad Sculpt.
Nomad Sculpt. That's right.
Yeah, it's relatively new kid on the scene for sculpting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm on my iPad doing that, and I find it uh, it's a great tool because I can just sit with my iPad and just like watch TV and sculpt stuff or whatever. Again, I'm no pro with this yet. I mean, but it's enough for me to get what I want for our show,
Mm-hmm.
But um, and so that part's good. So it's a victory there. But the magic to me about this program is the fact that I can unwrap this atlas, which is a way of being able to paint this.
Mm-hmm.
So we're doing it right now. So if it crashes, well, then our stream's done.
Yep.
But what it allowed me to do is it allowed me to bring it into Procreate in theory and then start painting it, which is hard to like. Typically, like in Blender and stuff like that, it's kind of hard to. There's always like more of a there's a barrier to painting and kind of seeing it real time as you
Mm-hmm.
paint it, because you usually do go into Photoshop and you paint stuff 2D. At least how I know it, but maybe there's new techniques out there that I haven't seen it. But
Yeah.
this technique is what I found pretty intuitive for sculpting and to paint. So yeah, you can see here it's all rainbow colors here,
Mm-hmm.
but what I can do next is I can go to here again. Bear with me here. I think it is export. OBJ, export OBJ. It'll ask me where I want to send it to, and I'm going to send it to Procreate, and let's see what happens here. Importing, think about it, and it may not like it, and then I'll figure that out here. It gives the implication that's working. This is something else altogether, but let me go here. Oh, there it is. Oh, unsupported moral. Okay, dismath. Okay, fine.
Overlapping. Okay.
Okay, so I have some things here. Oh, because the other bear is
Oh,
still
the
there.
other
My
bear is
old bear.
underneath there.
It's underneath it. So I was like, what are you doing? I don't
I
like this
did my
at all.
best. What do you want?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can delete that later. That's fine. Let me see if it's even in the layers here or not. But yeah, it is. So let me see if I can get rid of it. Clear. Yeah. Let's see here. There's the bear itself. Clear. How do I delete this off of here? I don't know how to do that.
Maybe you can't with the import.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe it's just stuck with all these extra pieces. But one other thing I could try is go back into here and turn off all this and just throw all this out. I've already saved it, so I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
Delete, and let's try this one more time. I will go back here. Delete. I'll delete all the EVs. Yes, delete. Unwrap Atlas again. We'll try this one more time, just for fun.
Now, is this when you say unwrap? Is it what I think of unwrap, where you unwrap the polys into a flat surface and then you can paint
Yep.
on them and move the UVs around with a texture map?
Yeah, it's pretty much making it's just generating a texture map
Mm-hmm.
that you can paint in Photoshop or something like that. But the beauty of it here is it unwraps the atlas, but then I can bring it into Procreate
Mm-hmm.
and then just paint as if I'm painting on it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, instead of having to paint 2D
Oh, I
like
see.
on a flat surface
Right,
like on
right,
a
right,
map,
right.
I can actually just paint on the model.
Oh, that's
So
interesting. Because yeah, when I'm used to unwrapping it, it basically converts it to basically a 2D projection. Not a 2D. I mean, it literally unwraps the polys, right? Um,
yeah, yeah. So here we go. See,
oh,
I'm
that's
painting
interesting.
away.
Wow, that's really
Yeah,
cool that it does it that way.
yeah. And so yeah, and I just have to just change the color here. I'll take this one. Sure, throw it on there. Yep, and start painting away.
Very cool. That's very
Yeah, but
cool.
I know we're kind of running out of time, but maybe we got to start doing this next week. But this won't take. I don't think this will take too
No,
long.
no,
I'm not
no.
gonna
I
spend
feel
too
like
much
you
time.
can. I don't think we're not in any particular hurry. We're only at
Yeah,
36 minutes, so we've gone up as far as an hour, honestly, when we're really having fun. So I still
yeah,
think
but
is there still like a little bit of a hint of blue there?
yeah, yeah. Let me see if I just undo all this. Hang on a second. Go like this, and now everything's gonna be good.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Now it seems like it's
Um.
slightly lower resolution than it was
Yeah.
in your
Yeah. It does
sculptor
look like that.
tool.
Yeah. And now I can actually increase the resolution also back
Mm-hmm.
in Nomad Sculpt.
Mm-hmm.
Like I deliberately made a really low res because
Mm-hmm.
it just felt like I don't want to be as taxing on the machine. Um, but I can always go back in and just up the res a little bit higher and
And does the
um,
paintbrush dynamically project onto the surface? So does it dynamically like move around the surface? You don't have to paint underneath it or anything like that.
yeah, it just sticks with just whatever you see is what you get
That's
pretty
cool.
much.
That's cool.
Yeah. But yeah, as you can see, yeah, I definitely need higher res so I can
Yeah.
kind of get better details. But I mean, just for a practice run, I'm pretty happy with this. Um, and again, just a wood bear, so
Right. I
I
mean, it
don't really
doesn't need to
care how
be. Yeah.
it doesn't have to be perfect.
Honestly, the less perfect it is, the better. I mean.
Yes, yeah, I'm with you on that too. Yeah, that's the other thing is, yeah, I'm not too obsessed with getting it right because it's only in literally one shot.
Mm-hmm. Well, I
Um,
mean, the barrels show up in other episodes, but
yeah, yeah,
for the
it'll
for the
forever
pilot
live.
episode,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Forever, it'll forever live in Mitchell's bar. But
Now, what did
yeah,
you do there that it's not spilling over into the rest of the ear? Was it a particular command that says "Do not change beyond this topology," or
no,
you're just
I just got a
careful?
very steady hand.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. This is why I'm not an artist.
that's all it is. Just well practiced with an Apple Pencil, I guess. But let's see what happens there. Ooh, I don't
Oh,
want to do
that was
that.
weird. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you moved on to a different UV at that point.
Yep, exactly. So it's funny because if you you've been in games, so you understand
Yeah,
UVs and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of funny to just kind of hang out and talk to you about it, and then
yeah,
kind of right away
right,
um,
right.
what I'm doing.
I know all the jargon. I know all the lingo.
Yes, it's pretty funny. Yeah, but yeah. So I'd say the mission was a success, but yeah, I need to fine tune some things. But
Mm-hmm.
and I'll do that maybe within next week or something like that. But yeah, this is
Yeah, I
I'm
can see
pretty
where it would be like
pretty
valuable to
stoked.
do some highlights on the ridges, just to get a little
Yep.
bit of maybe like throw a
Yeah.
little bit of gray or black into the indented parts, the embossed parts,
Yeah.
reverse embossed or relief or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. Like really play with it that way. Yeah,
Yeah. But anyways, yeah, that was the intention, and
very
it
cool.
took a little while, but yeah,
I mean, I
we
think the
kind of got
results were definitely worth it.
And when I build out the actual set, this will live in that set in Mitchell's bar. It'll be like the shot's kind of like roughly like that, I think, something
Mm-hmm.
like that. So, yeah, but yeah, I'll definitely get more polygons in here so I can kind of paint even more tight with the model. But from far away, it's looking okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it does for a fact. It does for a fact. That's really, really cool.
So cool.
It'd be a lot
All right, I
easier
think
than like hand drawing all of it in the background, and then we can.
yeah, and then
And
we can
just
always
for for all of our viewers who aren't as familiar, this goes back. You can go and watch one of our earlier episodes where we explain why we're. Well, James explains why we're doing the 3D stuff. So in animation, if you do traditional 2D animation, you have to be very, very specific about your camera shots. Because
yep,
every time you change your camera shot, you have to redraw all of the art that is within the frame, right? And so that's why if you look at traditional cartoons that are 100% 2D, they will always be from 3 or 4 camera positions. Like watch The Simpsons, watch Bob's Burgers. They generally speaking, they have very familiar camera angles that they come back to all the time because it's easier to reuse those shots than it is to make art to support all the new angles that a director might want to use. If, like what we're doing, um, you produce a 3D environment that you render out with a flat shader so it looks like it's 2D,
yep,
you can put the camera wherever you want in the space, render it out into a 2D surface, and then all of your 2D work you can put on it. So what that does is it gives you the freedom to basically, as a director, put your camera wherever you want it to, and then you don't have to do it. It basically lowers the overhead on generating art, right?
yep,
So, and that's what we're
yeah.
doing. Some of our characters are 3D, like Tinsel is 3D.
Pencil 3D, yes.
But again, we're going to be using a flat shader, a toon shader, to flatten everything out so it'll look like it's 2D and it'll look like it's a part of the world. And it's interesting, like you'd be surprised how many 2D cartoons actually use this technique to basically outsource to a computer some of the more tedious aspects of 2D animation.
Yeah, I think you really explained it really well. For me, as on the amateur side, I'm just a lazy. I'm just lazy. I don't want to keep drawing this bear over and over and over again. I want to just rotate my shot. Oh, there's a shot. It's done. An
Right.
overhead shot. Oh, it's done.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah,
that's all I want to
exactly.
do. I don't want to keep drawing this. I want to spend time animating Calamity Jane
Right.
and Sam D and all the other
Right. And
characters that are
not
in our
not
world.
redrawing an unmovable,
Exactly.
a
Exactly.
non-moving bear from 1,000
Yes.
different angles. Yeah.
Yeah, and background art. I mean, I am. It is a whole other set of skills that I'm all about. For me, I like doing the performance. I like doing the character stuff. I love doing background art and animation as well. But it's just a different mindset, different skill set.
Mm-hmm.
And then for our cartoon though, I want all my energy to go into Calamity Jane, and I'd rather if we ever end up with a budget, I want to hire a really talented background artist and animator to help
Mm-hmm.
with that stuff. But we got to be
Absolutely.
smart with how we do stuff. So, which is why we're here and how we came to this conclusion. Like, okay, for backgrounds, let's try to build some 3D sets and toon shaded, like you said. You explained it much more in a professorial way than I did.
I'm much more didactic.
Yes,
Or I'm pedagogical. Yeah.
you're using the fancy college words, not me. Dude. That's why.
I think
That's why we're both here.
I think didactic is at this point almost a pejorative, but pedagogical is still acceptable.
So many syllables. My head hurts now. Yeah, we're in a good spot. This is a good stopping point for now. I think the goal was reached. What I wanted to do tonight to kind of explain process a little bit. You can see here, like I do need
Yeah.
to figure out the reason why this is happening here on the top.
Well, you've got
Is
tearing in the
because-
UVs, it looks like.
Exactly.
So you've got
yeah.
Z fighting going up there. So some
Z
parts are
fighting,
getting,
yeah. Yeah, and I think that would be solved if I make a higher poly model where there's a little more give between polygons and where it'll be more forgiving about. Okay, this doesn't need to be white, even though it's the neighbor of this um, brown piece of real estate on the 2D map.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but in general though, I think I'm pretty happy with the results. So
Very
I think it's a
cool.
good spot to call it good for
Yeah,
tonight.
for sure. Well, thanks for letting me rant about improv for the better part of a half hour. And
It's funny. I had to improv on, like I said, I had to improv on the fly.
I mean, it was
It's
all
so
linked. A night
parallel.
of improv.
Yeah, an accidental improv night of
Yeah.
sorts for me.
Well,
So
in any case, we'll wrap it up here. As always, please consider joining us in our journey by heading over to calamityjane.rocks. That'll take you to our Patreon site, where you can become a subscriber and help us make this cartoon a reality. I really encourage you to do that. In the meantime, you can check us out on our Facebook page. You can follow that there. That's where we post all of our updates about, if we have to cancel the streams or if we have to change the time or whatever. Obviously, you're watching this on YouTube, so we have a YouTube channel. And you can head over to Twitter as well, at Jane Salamander. We do a 3-tweet story every week. We have a pretty silly one, I think, coming up this week. It's all about Mitchell Winchester, who, if you've watched our stream at all, you'll be familiar with, and it's a very Mitchell story this week. And I think that's our social media presence at this point. So, but yeah, consider following us on all of the things that we support. We don't have a TikTok or an Instagram, just those other ones. Anyway, thanks for joining us, and stay safe out there, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Good night, James.
good night.